All right, I've got everything I need to build my own esports program. Just kidding. No, but in all seriousness, a big thank you to our panelists for sharing their expertise. Now, health and wellness for students should always be an important factor when making considerations for collegiate esports initiatives, especially now more than ever. Making sure that athletes and community members have access to health and wellness resources is important in maintaining a commitment to a student's well-being, both physically and mentally. Now, in today's next panel, Full Sail's Raylan McAfee moderates as Dr. Lindsay Migalore and Varsity Esports Foundation's Bubba Gaeddert discuss how gamers can control their personal wellness, why it matters, and how those in leadership roles can provide support. And don't forget that panelists will be live in the Discord chat to connect and answer any questions you may have, so be sure to follow the link.
Hello and welcome everyone. Welcome to the Health, Wellness, and Resources for College Esports Players today. My name is Raylan McAfee and I'm the Program Director for the Sports Marketing and Media degree here at Full Sail University. And I am honored to be joined by two wonderful panelists here. And here with me we have Dr. Lindsay Migalore and Bubba Gaeddert. And I am excited to talk with you guys today. So I would love for you guys just to give us a quick bio so everyone knows who you are and how you work in the esports world. So Doc, why don't you start us off?
All right. My name is Dr. Lindsay Migliore. Like you said, the last name's hard to pronounce depending on your level of Italian. So we can let that one slide. But
I'll just call you Doc from now on.
Perfect. I am an esports medicine physician. I own and operate a company called GamerDoc, which is focused on making competitive gaming a little bit more healthy, a little healthier than it is right now. I work with casual gamers, I work with professional athletes, I work with esports orgs, and I work with a wide variety of people like Bubba to, improve the space just a little bit more. I also am the president of Queer Women of Esports, the advocacy director for Women Games International, and I'm a faculty associate at the NYIT Center for Sports Medicine. And I'm really happy to be here and talking about this excellent subject.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us today. And Bubba, why don't you give us a little bit of your background?
Yeah, of course. So glad to be here. I'm Bubba Gaeddert, Executive Director of the Varsity Esports Foundation. That's one full-time job. My other full-time job is having 3 boys and doing distance learning and being the IT director when the internet and the Wi-Fi goes down in our house, or the PE teacher. My wife's the principal right now. It's pretty awesome. And but our foundation is really what I focus on mostly. And we're a nonprofit foundation charity 501c3 that just works on the ecosystem around esports, especially around scholastic esports, and helping really students be proactive in the space rather than being reactive in the sense of unhealthy habits and cyberbullying and mental health and suicide prevention and diversity inclusion. Just finding people that are doing it right, like Doc, who we can get the information in front of them and help them, shape their lives a little better rather than kind of seeing what the industry or what people famous on YouTube might be doing, and really just leading a better lifestyle, a whole, all the way around.
That is excellent. And I'm excited to pick both of your guys' brains today on our panel here. So let's jump right in. Let's start off with why esports players should think about health and wellness practices.
Oh, you want to take that? You want me to take that?
I think you're better suited. You have a cooler background. So
I don't know. Do you mean like my virtual background or my actual background? Oh, okay.
Both.
Oh, yeah. Okay, cool. So it depends on who you're talking to, the conversation. If you're a player and you want to make esports your career, or you're a player and you want to have fun playing video games, but you enjoy carrying your teammates, esports health and wellness initiatives can make you play better.
100%. Like we look at the different ranges of what we think we know about health and wellness in gaming, and we're a society that perpetuates stay in the basement, eat your chips, drink your soda, and we've been doing that to people my age. I'm 38 to down to 11-year-olds, but we don't say this kind of stuff to our 5-year-old that uses their elite pad to learn math, or 85-year-old trying to use solitaire for their memory. We don't say this kind of stuff to people. So it's a societal issue to really focus on what real health and wellness is for gamers. I would say the struggle probably is that there's not enough literacy around it. And I think the correlation between traditional sports is there. We look at traditional sports as being this parallel that we can compare to esports to, but really it is a field or an industry that we need to learn from on how maybe not to do things. But we have enough information from all sorts of industries on how to get this right. It's just esports is an infant, and we are crawling right now. Maybe we're a stubborn teenager. Actually, we're so segmented, and we don't have enough information to really connect each other. And this is why we're all trying to get together on these panels, and hopefully someday we won't have to have esports conferences where we're explaining what esports is, but we're diving in deep like this to give more education literacy around it too.
Yeah, I agree. And you guys touched on it, in the traditional sports world, the health and wellness is a little stronger. It's that full grown adult, if we're using Bubba's terms here. And, a lot of colleges and universities have the setups already for their student athletes to train, have the diet tables, food tables where they can go and eat. They've got strength and conditioning practices. They have all of this pretty strong and set up.
Mm-hmm.
Doc, why don't you talk to us a little bit about some of the different categories of health and wellness? When we say health and wellness, it's not just your food that you eat or go out and run. Talk to us about what we mean by health and wellness in the different areas.
Yeah. So if you're talking about physical health, for me, it's sleep, exercise, nutrition. If you're not doing those three things, it doesn't matter how many supplements you're taking or what special aim trainer you're using. None of those things matter. Sleep, exercise, nutrition are really the pillars of mental health. Making sure that you're getting enough sleep is really important. I know I'm a gamer. I played Fortnite until 2 a.m. last night. When you are sleep deprived, you perform worse, right? When you're sleep deprived, it's harder to form new memories. It's harder to learn new skills, and your reaction time is slowed. We know that from really good studies of we sleep deprived these poor basketball players, then we had them go shoot free throws. We know how accuracy decays with declining sleep. Making sure that you're getting your recommended 7 to 8 to 9 hours a night, depending on how old you are, is really, really, really important. Sleep is when our body clears away all the gunk that's been building up all day. Sleep is when we cement new memories. Sleep is when we learn new tasks. So making sure you're getting enough sleep is so easy, yet so ignored. Exercise. If I were to take all of the effects of exercise and be able to put them into a pill, I would be a billionaire, like overnight, because exercise is cancer fighting. Exercise is mood boosting. Exercise makes you perform better. Exercise does everything. If you don't believe me, hop into your favorite aim trimmer, hop into Aim Lab, test your performance, go for a 15-minute jog, slow as you want, and then come back and see how you perform. Endorphins are these things that get released when you're doing aerobic activity, and they boost the blood flow to your brain, and they help do a lot of good things up there. And then nutrition. If you look at someone like Tom Brady, just got his, Florida, just got his 7th Super Bowl ring. I think now he has more championships than any other NFL franchise. If you look at his diet, the attention that he pays to his diet is incredible. I mean, there's no reason. It's the reason he's 43 and he's still the best quarterback in the league. Paying attention to diet can have profound effects on your health, profound effects on the way you play. So paying attention to your diet, making sure at least you know what the basic macronutrients are, right? I'm not going to give you everyone an esports nutrition lesson right now, but at least learning a little bit about nutrition is really important. And then mental health. Mental health is just as important as physical health. We know this. The brain is not any different than any other organ in your body. The brain's not any different than your heart. It needs special attention to be paid to it. Burnout is real. The lifespan of the career span of an esports athlete is like 3 to 4 years. Why is that? Well, injuries, but also burnout and mental fatigue. So making sure that you are, we get checkups for our eyes, we get checkups for our bodies, get a checkup for your brain. And don't bottle up your emotions. Don't, put it all off to the grind. Paying attention to your health is really important. So those are really the basics.
So I want to dig a little deeper, and I'm going to start with food. We all know that food fuels the body. And I know you said you didn't want to go into the diet specifically, but can you talk to us maybe some general, what are some of the best kinds of foods that players can eat to improve their performance?
So you want to make sure that you are getting a long sustained release of energy. There's three categories. You have protein, carbohydrates, and you've got fats. Carbohydrates get a bad rap, right? It's bread, it's the sugar source. But unfortunately, your brain can only use sugar as a source of energy. All your muscles and everything else in your body can use protein, it can use fats, but your brain really needs a constant supply of sugar. If you are going to give your brain a boost of glucose by eating those Skittles because you're Marshawn Lynch and you're about to run out in the field, that's great. You're going to get a boost of energy. And then all of a sudden, all that sugar is going to be gone. And your brain is going to want more, and you're going to get hungry and you're going to get fatigued. So maintaining a release of energy by finding a good source of complex carbohydrates is really important, and adding a little bit of protein. So peanut butter crackers with whole wheat toast are really good, or whole wheat crackers is really good. Any combination of something that's whole wheat and with a little bit of protein like almond butter, peanut butter is really good. And we try and find snacks and treats that are low residue on your hands, right? Because you don't want to be gaming and then have stuff get on your hands. So like slicing things up ahead of time. Meal prep is really important in esports because a lot of us, if you're a streamer, you might be doing 6-7 hour streams. If you're a player, your practice might be 3 hours. You get a short break and then you're practicing again. So having some sustained amount of energy while you're playing is really important. So find those complex carbohydrates you like. It doesn't need to be processed and packaged, right? The closer you can get to how it came out of the earth, the better.
That's great. And just thinking about having the players think about eating beforehand. I was a basketball player myself, and there's no way I would have gone into game night without having a pregame meal.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got to step yourself back and think about, hey, I'm going to be streaming for 6 hours. What can I do to help myself prepare for that?
And we always talk about like hangry. Everyone laughs about hangry. Like that's a real thing. Your mood and your attention and everything is affected when you're hungry. So exactly like you said, make sure you're eating a solid meal beforehand, and make sure you do have a source of snacks for the course of the game. Every like 1.5 hours, you should be eating something new.
Oh, that's good. So Bubba, talk to us about maybe some either resources or how can we help them make good habits in the realm of food?
Sure. Just thinking about what Doc said, I definitely go against the Michael Scott carb load before your 5K run. Right.
Such a good episode.
Which I think a lot of us grew up with. Like Raylan, like playing basketball. Did you say, oh, well, I'm going to eat pasta the night before or something, right?
Yes.
Like, yeah,
Yes.
like we're so used to that. But I mean, does esports really have that kind of stigma around it doing that? No, it's to what Doc said about your brain and the sugars you need for your brain to operate, which I didn't even realize that your brain run out of sugar. That's something I missed in that class.
Yeah.
And I just got a new class right now. So yeah, but we fill that with, we're going to be a better gamer by getting sport drink, whatever, fuel type drinks. I don't want to say any names, right? So yeah, so resources wise, you can go find on Twitter and YouTube some really good resources under GamerDoc, which is the person I would recommend, because this kind of stuff is what she talks about on her YouTube videos and her streams and people she interviews. And then mental health side is really important as well. As Doc said, that you've got to look at a whole being, educating yourself in your whole being rather than making sure you're just competing, right? Or you're just being an influencer. I mean, esports has many verticals on what jobs you can get. So it's just as much as the IT guys or the our production people, right, who are in this field, who are working behind the scenes. And I've done a lot of production, and it's just, oh, got to get through this and drink a Dr. Pepper and keep going. Um, Using resources, especially for mental health, I think a really good resource is Cam Adair with Game Quitters. That's really good at looking what gaming addiction and gaming disorder might be. I'm going through his clinical study right now, which is kind of interesting. I'm not a doctor, but I get to look at the clinical side of it to learn how I can then promote it. And I want to do it for myself too, because Doc, I was playing Call of Duty with my church friends till 2 a.m. last night as well. So, I mean, this is the gamer life, because that's how we connect. And I think mental health, there's a lot of good mental health organizations out there. NAMI is one I can think of. And any resources we have on our website, we try to connect people and just connect the dots. But you can literally look up and Google, health, esports, health and wellness, and just start there. But if your colleges and your, organizations don't know, they probably do, because they're helping with health and wellness for other students, traditional students, other student athletes. There's going to be resources. If we're really talking to the college space right now, you need to ask questions and you need to search out that advice, because you need to take care of yourself just as much as I need to take care of myself. And you've got to be able to find the things that work for you.
That's a really great point. And that's something that we remind students all the time at Full Sail, but don't be afraid to ask questions and don't be afraid to reach out. You're not alone. You're not the only person dealing with this. Trust me, in the world of education, lots of students are going through it. And so the more that we can reiterate that to students, I think the healthier that mental health side can continue to become. I'd love to kind of get into the social well-being side. This past year, everyone has been pretty isolated. And I'd love for you guys to talk to me a little bit about how esports has helped, hurt, or can best be navigated moving forward in this silo on the social side.
I'll throw out what I've experienced, what I've noticed, and this is by far not clinical data, but just the conversations, is just as much as stocks on Netflix and toilet paper and hand sanitizer and Zoom has gone up since March last year. So has gaming, right? So is gaming, and the purchase and of products and consoles and devices and games, and the amount of time we spend. So that's great for the industry, I guess, if we want to say our numbers are great. And look at us, we got great numbers, and we're a $160 billion industry in video games. But so has suicide, and so has depression, and so has isolation. And yeah, I mean, we're connecting, but we're also humans that are statistically, like historically, supposed to be in tribes of 50 people or less, right? We're globalized, and we're doing social media and wanting likes. I don't need to go down this soapbox, but you can watch some really good stuff like Childhood 2.0 by a group we partner with called Bark USA or Bark US, and they talk about that sort of stuff where we're so much more globalized, just like the Social Dilemma thing on Netflix. So when I look at the social side, the social aspect of it, there's a lot of connecting where you couldn't before, because internet and video games has connected many of us, and we're meeting people, we're meeting partners, we're meeting spouses, we're meeting friends out of nowhere across the other side of the globe. We've always understood that in the online Twitter sphere type world and gaming sphere. But yeah, there is that struggle, just too much of what you said, with we need to ask for help too. Or sometimes, I think this is a comment I heard from some really good influencers I think it was written by Crystal Mills or one of her people at Ritual Motion. The streamers and I've had this, and maybe you've experienced this, Doc, people come into the chat and they dump their problems onto you. And they expect you to, since you're this visual person that has a real connection, you can then have this social connection, just like if you just met somebody over at a bar. I don't know, I have no idea, but like they kind of dump some information on you, and now you're responsible for helping them. Well, put some exclamation point mental health in your chat so people can then go find resources to talk, because we're not certified people to handle those things, but we kind of tend ourselves to listen a little more because we're in that space to want viewers. So it's a fine line. So with all that said, social aspect, there's a lot of great stuff. There's a lot of great stuff happening, and we're still able to connect because of technology, but we are so distant because of physical space.
There's this really good study that looked at the risk of depression and suicide in adolescents, and then it compared it to screen time. And exactly what you think, the more time spent on screens, the higher incidence and risk of depression. And there's a couple hypotheses why they thought that was. You look on social media, you only see the highlights of someone's life, right? An influencer is an influencer because they really know how to edit those pictures. They're renting the best cars to take pictures in front of. They're, that boat that's in the marina that you can't see the background to, right? They're taking those, they're curating that image. And so you compare your life to theirs. And that's not their life. We all know that's not their life. And so that leads to, feelings of self-doubt, feelings like your life isn't as worthwhile as theirs. And you're comparing yourselves, and comparison's the thief of joy. But in that study, the only thing that did not increase risk of depression relative to screen time was video games. And I think with video gaming, gamers, I think there's going to be a lot of really interesting data that comes out of this pandemic. But I think that above all else, gamers will be some of the most resistant to issues in their life, because for a lot of us, some of our relationships haven't changed at all, right? I have a group of buddies that I've been gaming with for 10 years, and our relationship hasn't changed at all. We actually play video games more. And so we are allowed to maintain those connections. We are allowed to maintain those relationships. So I think, gaming is this beautiful, wonderful thing that, if used correctly and if used in moderation, can lead to not only a happier life, but a fruitful career.
Wow, that's great news. And to hear the science back it up is exciting as well. So I'm going to kind of move in another direction, and let's think about and talk about exercise. It's one of those big pieces that you talked about earlier, Doc. And how much time should esports players be allocating to exercise, along with the other training that they're having to do with the video games, maybe their other school commitments? As an educator, I'm hoping they're still, watching those videos, reading those articles. Talk to me about time management. How much time should they be allocating towards their exercise?
Definitely. So as little as 15 minutes of exercise, aerobic activity, meaning getting your heart rate up, can have positive benefits. I think the recommendation is 190 or 130 minutes, 130 minutes a week of exercise, of aerobic activity. I would argue, so I consider esports athletes. You're using your body and your mind to compete in, a game, which is all sports. And if you want to be a professional athlete, you got to act like it, right? If you want to play at the highest level, you got to act like it. Gaming is a pastime, esports is a career. If you are on an esports team in college, treat it like you are on a football team in college. Treat it like you want to go to the NFL. You should be investing more time in exercise and nutrition, because that's what's going to separate you from your competitors. There's not a lot of professional esports jobs out there. I mean, in terms of competitors, there's really not. You're competing for 6 slots on a team, depending on the title, and you're competing against not just the best people in your city, not just the best people in your town, not just the best people in your state, not just the best people in your country, but the best people in the world. How are you going to get better than them, right? Because guaranteed they're training just as much as you are. It's using those variables like exercise. So making sure that when you're training, you're making sure that you're setting yourself up for success. So I see this more often than I can count. Someone realizes they need to exercise to get better, so they buy a bunch of weights, they get a gym membership, they go 5 days in a row, and then all of a sudden they get hurt. You got to ramp up. You have to take it slowly, because gaming takes a toll on our bodies. It really does. The muscles of our hand and wrist are not meant to reach those control keybinds 600 times a game. So those muscles and those tendons have adapted changes inside of them to resist more chronic stress, like what you're providing, and not to lift dumbbells, right? If you haven't lifted dumbbells in 5 years, don't go lift dumbbells. start slow, start with some yoga, start with gentle range of motion, gentle exercises, because your body's not ready for it. But once you do start addressing those issues in your hand and wrist, once you do start increasing your muscle mass, you're going to see huge performance benefits. So, starting slow, starting with aerobic activity, doing gentle yoga. I highly recommend yoga with Adrienne. If you guys don't follow her on YouTube, she's amazing. Getting into that, and then, working with either a physical trainer or an athletic trainer to find a more tailored exercise program is really important.
It's so important. If they want to be professional athletes, then they've got to train like professional athletes, just like the Tom Brady's of the world, you know. So it's exciting to hear you talk about that. Just thinking back to my collegiate career and thinking about everything that was provided to me as an athlete and how it helped me succeed over that 4 years and continue to be able to compete. And it was the time management system that they made me think about and break it down. It was making sure that I was not out late and I was getting sleep. It was having the right types of foods provided and taught to me as to how to cook myself, as well as the right exercise. And, for all that the NCAA pros and cons that it has, the one thing that it does do is protects time. And those student athletes are not supposed to be training over X number of hours when they're in season and then X number of hours when they're out of season. And that's something that maybe our esports players and athletes are not thinking about because of partially just the system itself. And we stream for 6 to 8 hours. Talk to me a little bit more about that time management and how these players they want to be on and they want to be playing and being a part of it, but then they aren't maybe thinking or knowing about what they need to manage themselves and the rest of their life. Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, Raylan, you hit the nail on the head with, in college we had when I played soccer in college, we had the food, whatever it was, I can't remember the cool name for it, but where the athletes ate, right? And that was all set up, and we want to start practice in football, in July, but we can't because of regulations. Well, we're sitting in an industry where the college space, the only governing body right now that really at a national level that's recognizing is the Junior College Association. Even Connor, Coach Alney, who worked for me, he created a bunch of content for us when he got hired to be a head esports coach. And he'd already run like college programs, started a college league, had a LAN center, been a pro Call of Duty player. Like, he's been through the space. When he got in for interview, they spent 2 hours asking him what esports was. And this is a thing that's happening in the college space around the globe, is recruitment for people to lead a team, because let's bring some money into our university by getting more students and more admission dollars, because we can, and it can also not be done on campus, and maybe we don't have to spend money on things yet, but it can be done to recruit players. So this is happening where administration or athletic departments are jumping in feet first and not knowing what to do and not knowing how they should regulate it, because they're not being told how to. Now, groups like NACE and NJCAA and UCEA and TESPA and all those other groups, TESPA not anymore, but they're helping with connecting colleges so they get better as a community to know what to do. But that's it. That's where we're at right now. And then we're just using resources where we can to help those colleges. And it's a struggle, because we don't know where it's going, and we're so young, right? We still talk about this, and it's going to take some time. But there needs to be some more communication. But I don't think we always like regulation either. So there's this fine line, right?
Right. So, Doc, can you talk to us a little bit about time management and maybe some best practices to help athletes?
Esports still has a huge issue with time management. Esports still has a huge issue with grinding. Esports still has a huge issue with toxicity, but it's a lot better than it was 10 years ago. And 10 years ago, there was so much more of a focus on putting your nose to the grind, putting in your 14 hours a day, and you're going to get better, right? And so sometimes the people who are creating the culture are the ones who came from a more toxic culture. So remembering that it's important to break up your training, right? It's so important to break up your training. We know that if you're sitting at the computer trying to train to get better for more than 3 hours, you're not getting any better, right? Your performance is going to decay. So if you do know that, if you're trying to say you're playing League and you're trying to learn a new hero, and you know that you need to put 40 hours into this hero before you can truly understand them, break that up into chunks, right? So you're going to wake up in the morning, you're going to grab your coffee, grab a glass of water, you're going to eat a banana, you're going to sit down and you're going to play 2 hours on that hero. Get up, go do something else. Get up away from your setup and go do something else that isn't related to the game. And by breaking up your training, you're going to be more efficient with your time, because efficiency is the basis of time management, right? If you are not efficient, you're not going to be good at time management. For me personally, making lists is super important. I think there's a huge, we don't know any of this data, so this is purely speculative. But from an observational standpoint, people with ADHD tend to be drawn to gaming and tend to be drawn to esports. And, I've had an ADHD diagnosis my whole life. I feel no stigma attached to it. I think it makes me very successful, but it also sometimes presents really unique hurdles. Making lists is really important. And sometimes I will even segment my day by half an hour so that I am being productive. From 8 to 8:30, I'm going to do yoga. At 8:30, I'm going to start working on responding to those emails that have been in my mailbox for 2 days. So making lists and then being efficient with your time. Also, your phone shouldn't be next to you when you don't need it. Just having the phone next to you, science has shown it's distracting. You don't have to be looking at it. Even if it's just physically next to you, it's going to distract you. Put your phone away. For some people, you might even have to put that, if you're working on a document, you might even have to put that on airplane mode or something like that. But just being efficient with your time, making lists, and then segmenting your work. It's called the Pomodoro method. So if you need to study, if you need to read 100 pages, read for 25 minutes, go step away, come back, read for 25 minutes, go step away, come back. Humans are not meant to sit in one spot and think about one thing for as long as we do. That is not how we were designed. That's not how we were made. It's against everything that is inside of us. So if you can't sit still, that's not anything wrong with you, right? It's not anything wrong with you. But figuring out ways to be successful is important.
I love it. Such great advice for sure.
Honey, you hear that? There's nothing wrong with me.
I didn't say that, Bubba.
No, the wife may say otherwise. No, I'm just kidding. So I want to talk a little bit about the intellectual well-being. In intellectual well-being being that, lifelong learning is what we are supposed to do. And that's what keeps our minds healthy. So how can players grow in their intellectual well-being in the midst of everything else that we've just talked about that they have to have on their list?
I'll throw out. Today I've learned a lot. I've got about 10 tabs open, and also thinking there's some sort of fluffy dog about a technique, a Pomodoro.
But Pomodoro method. Yeah.
I found it. Google helped me out. It wasn't a dog after all. But I think stuff like this is important for me, going through gaming disorder information, going through ADHD adult inattentiveness for me, to get to your point, Lindsay.
Yeah.
For me, you're exactly right. No wonder I'm drawn to it, to gaming and not sitting still. But understanding that, and the intellectual side would be very much around. I found some, because I love esports, I love gaming. I like reading books about gaming, and also like sci-fi and teen novels too, like Twilight and Harry Potter. But those intellectual things you need outside of gaming. As much as we sometimes don't want to get goal-orientated self-help books because we don't want to set a goal we're not going to accomplish, and those are always hard, even though you're like gung-ho about it and you finish it. Educating yourself with something that's happening in historical, like we're reading a book my wife and I call Cass, like with systemic racism. Like there's some things you need to really think about beyond just when am I going to play next. because that's where a lot of us live, and that's where a lot of us live in gaming, or what's happening, how I make it to work, or you know, social time, or kids, or whatever. So intellectual side, I think, just from my experience in these past few years, going beyond just repetition of things that I enjoy, but going on to things that I'm going to help me grow, and that's been a new muscle for me to exercise, and it's been fun. And you know, it's going to come back to how am I now going to express that in new ways and have new language to use when I have conversations, and also how in my role can I help others. And I think that's a goal that a lot of us have, in leaving a legacy as well, and leaving some information to the next people and your kids and anybody around you. But intellectually, if you can read more and read stuff that maybe isn't related to gaming, or you know, maybe you don't like the news, but maybe you see what's going on in the world outside of the United States. Those are helpful things, I think, for tools and techniques.
Definitely. I think that I've always said and believed that successful people will always be successful, even if they're not in their own field, right? So if a successful person changes careers, I still believe they're going to succeed, because people who are never content with their current amount of knowledge they have, those are really the people who go the furthest in life. Whoever tells you they have all the answers has no idea, right? Has no idea. Always trying to find new sources of knowledge, always trying to get better, and use that to further your career, or further your relationships, or just improve, always be improving your life. I think that for me is so intellectually stimulating. I remember when I was in med school, I was like, my dream is to make enough money so I only have to work 3 days a week, and I'm going to have 4 days off a week, and I'm going to play video games, and I'm going to go hiking, and I'm going to spend time with my family those 4 days a week. And then I was like, well, what about the other 3 days, right? Like, find a career and find a passion in life that you love, right? Because life is way too short to have a 9 to 5 that you don't love. It's way too short. And that to me is also so intellectually stimulating, because I love what I do. I love getting up in the morning. I love sitting down on my computer. I love coming onto these talks, because I made my passion my career. And I know that comes from, it 100% comes from a point of privilege. I was raised middle class. I had a good education. I have 2 parents who love me very much. I'm white, I'm cisgendered. So that it does come from a position of privilege, but, you know, always trying to find that passion and find that way to get better day after day, year after year. You will love your life. I'm just telling you, just love my life. Feeling really blessed to be here with all of you right now.
Well, we're happy to have you. And I couldn't agree more with you guys. Just always finding something more to open up your mind. So I want to talk a little now about environmental wellness. You know, thinking about the things around you. And if we are sitting, you guys have way better chairs than I do right now. And I have no doubt it's better for your body. So that's just one little piece of the environment. But talk to me about what type of environment around the player should they have a setup?
Bubba, you want this? Do you want me to take this? All right. It depends on what your goals are. To be honest, if you're in a training environment, day to day, something with low distractions, something that is comfortable, something that's ergonomic. But if you want to perform well on game day, you have to simulate that game day in your training environment. So I don't know if anyone's watched the Tiger Woods documentary. It's amazing. But his dad growing up, when Tiger would be going to drive the ball or going to take a putt, he would jingle his keys, or he'd talk loudly, or he'd walk where no golfer is ever supposed to walk, which is in the line of sight. And he made it so those distractions became part of his training. And that way, when they happened to him in front of a million people, he wasn't flustered. He was used to it because he was used to that. And so training in chaos is really important, especially now when, you know, we went from LAN events where ping didn't matter, right? Latency, delay didn't matter. but now we're competing remotely. So when you do have high ping, when the internet jumps up because your buddy's just trying to watch the Tiger Woods documentary downstairs on the same internet speed, what do you do in that moment? Do you freak out? Because if you freak out, you lost the game, right? You lost. Or do you understand, hey, I've played in high ping before. I know what to do. I'm gonna play a little bit more defensively. I'm not gonna go for those one-on-one battles. So training in really a volatile environment that's going to simulate game day. A lot of the pro teams that I work with have stages that they practice on, and they pump in cold air because it's freezing on those stages, and they pump in crowd noise. And there's some, pre-pandemic, they were bringing in spectators to watch. And so it's really easy to do when you're at home, because we have this beautiful thing called streaming. So if you plan on performing at a high level in your game, start streaming, because people watching will change the way you play, and it'll get you used to that and get you used to performing in those kind of situations.
Ah, great advice. So I want to touch into the community aspect. And as someone who I don't play games, I love the community aspect of esports. And it's so organic within the different games. So what are some of the best tips towards being a part of a healthy community, or maybe even more importantly, how can they handle when they're in an unhealthy community? What can they do?
I threw out Discord as a saving grace for a lot of gamers and influencers, but it can be just as toxic sometimes. If we're talking about both sides of the coin, we refer to Discord as a community. Most of us like be a part of my Discord community, or this is my community, and it's either your followers or your friends, and it's a helpful place. To throw out the flip side of the coin first, the toxicity in that, I haven't experienced it because I'm a privileged white male, but I see plenty of TikToks and hear plenty of people talk about this and have seen it. Is female gamers not turning on their mics because the fear of being harassed or using a female avatar, and it's not fun. And that's where we want to be proactive. And just as much as I was yelling at Tom Brady for having the best defense in the world last week, and Patrick Mahomes lying sideways and hitting Tyreek Hill in the face with a football, yelling at my TV, my kids watching, I'm presenting a way for them to be okay with yelling at refs or yelling at the TV. And we, in our society and gaming, have a lot of unfortunate examples of people making bad choices with their words and their tweets and their gameplay to make toxicity an okay thing, and it's not. And that community can really be detrimental, because it affects all genders, it affects all races. It's a problem that we have talked about where we're not fixing. And I know it's going to take time, but it's just something that we all need to get better at. I think there's a lot of leadership in our country that's going to help with things in the future and what we're doing right now, but there's too many YouTube videos of it being something that you can monetize to make fun of people and make fun of girls. Go make me a sandwich, and then those girls turn on sandwich mode and they destroy all those guys in those lobbies, which I think is awesome. Because so that side of the community, I think, is the struggle right now that we're not focusing on enough. And it's just as much as systemic inequality and racism. We've talked about this last year. If we're not talking about these things now, then when? Like, oh yeah, well, this is happening, so we'll see what happens in the future. No, we got to talk about it now. If not now, then when? And we've got too many people working in so many different silos in esports and gaming, where if we came together with some focus on toxicity and racism, and we did it around voting. We had a gamers vote thing that was pretty impactful last year, just like Rock the Vote. So let's keep putting our heads together and getting colleges in the college space to get together to fight things, like getting with charities like us to fight mental health issues, or toxicity issues. Like, we need to be doing this together.
Yeah. Bubba, God, just so perfect. I completely agree with everything Bubba said. There's a lot of ways to make sure that your community is inclusive. Setting up rules and expectations is really important. Some people, unless you put in specific rules, don't know what they're doing is offending someone, and don't know what they're doing is excluding someone. And so if you set rules and expectations from the beginning, then everyone's on the same page, right? So if you say explicitly off the back, hey, there's no racism, homophobia, sexism tolerated in this space, just setting expectations from the beginning. I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh, you're being politically correct. Come on, it's 2021. Let's all move on. Let's all move on and let's all be better people. Because creating inclusive communities it's the right thing to do, right? It's the ethical thing to do. But this is something that I've really been pushing. It's the profitable thing to do, right? We're doing it because it's ethical, but you get people's attention because the esports market, the esports viewership market, the people who are buying esports gear is largely one demographic. And if you include this huge demographic of gamers that want to get involved, all of a sudden your profit margins are huge. We've seen it with how the NFL targeted women viewers, how the MLB their viewership has been decaying for years and years and years and years. And last year it grew because of women viewers, right? Including people in your community is the right thing to do, but it's also the smart thing to do. Gaming definitely has an inclusivity problem. Our communities are not yet for everyone, but people who continue to try and close those doors will be on the wrong side of history. And it's 2021. Everything you do and say is out there on the internet. And 10 years from now, if you try and apply for a job and someone searches your name and it shows something that you did, you're not getting that job anymore, buddy. So there's a lot of good reasons to make sure your community is inclusive.
Let me back you up with some data here. Like,
oh yes,
like, okay, so intentionality and follow through is kind of what you meant. Like, companies, we can say, yeah, we're gonna have a sexual harassment cool, and then we had it. Let's check that box. We had diversity inclusion officer we hired. Cool, we checked that box. And this is happening a lot. So there's intentionality and follow through on both things there. Then data to back up kind of what Doc said is, yeah, 45 to 55% gamers are around the world, right? And male to female, if we just use those two categories for gender. And we say, when I look at the high school space, there are 80 to 20% male to female for maybe competing in high school in the esports space. But there's a lot more gamers. We look at minorities. 87% of African-American teens play video games. Then from the International Game Developer Association, they're saying that 13% of minorities create, of the games made, only 13% of those are created by minorities. So it's even much lower when it comes to African-American, or for that matter, any different gender. That's a little bit of data. There's a lot more. You can find it on our website, varsitysportsfoundation.org/research.
Perfect. Well, I appreciate you guys giving voice to all of this. As much as both of you guys, I respect the fact you say come from the privilege, but the fact that you're giving voice to everyone here is very respectful. So thank you for that. Can you guys give me any suggestions on how esports players can help support each other in all of these health and wellness areas that we've talked about today? How can we help each other be better?
Accountability. So say, hey, the season starts in 3 months. We want to get ready, so I'm sure you did this for basketball. I'm sure, everyone's done this for sports is you're going to create a workout group and you're going to meet 3 times a week and you're going to go through some workouts together. And if someone doesn't show up onto your Zoom call, you're going to text them and you're going to say, where are you? Having that group accountability is really important. Making sure that you are exercising together, that group aspect really helps things. Being able to check each other when you kind of spiral, when you're having that negative self-talk is really important. Continuing to boost each other up, give that reinforcement. I mean, I miss the team. I play on a women's hockey team right now, but the college team environment was just so special. Just high-fiving people and having your inside jokes and having that community. It's so powerful. So just make sure that you are being a powerful member of your community. You're supporting your teammates when they're down. Just checking in on each other, especially when you know they're going through some hard times, I think is really important to, I don't know, Bubba, what else you got?
Accountability. Yeah. I mean, that's
Yeah.
something we should have in every aspect of our life.
Yeah.
When it comes to gaming, you're right. You're right, Doc. Like I have this, as much as we're making call outs in the map and we're saying some guys come in and shoot here and whatever, we have time in between games to talk about things. And you can play random duos and squads and things and connect with people too. But having, yes, the community, like Doc said, and having people to play with, and it may not always be your partner or your spouse's hobby to do something like that, but then how can you connect in a relationship with something they like as well? There's there that's that's a deep generalization, but it's a very widespread thing that's probably a struggle with gamers too, is the grind of that and not reconnecting to life. I know it's hard right now, but setting up that Zoom time, that time to connect with people and be a part of a book club or something, right? Be a part of a community group, do something outside of what we're talking to gamers right now. We're talking to college people right now. This and college administrators, lead them in these ways and give them examples to be outside of that realm. Even though the athletes probably all hang out with athletes in the football team, they're probably involved in other student organizations. You just got to provide opportunities and options.
As we're closing out here our time together, I want to step back and think about our audience before they get to college. Those that may be joining us saying, I want to be a college esports player. To our younger audience, our high school or even middle school, Bubba, I know you know this group well. They want to get into esports. What should they be doing now to help prepare themselves if they decide they want to go to college and be esports players in college, to really maximize, one, being able to do it, and then two, being the best player once they get there?
So resources. First, go back and watch this video again and listen to everything Doc says. Watch it 2 or 3 times about your grind, your health and wellness options, what you should be doing, how to connect. Go and listen to, I always recommend Coach Alney on TikTok, his videos over the past year of helping high schoolers and middle schoolers understand, and the time he spends reconnecting with people in his comments that say, middle schoolers and high schoolers use a lot of paraphrasing and just shorthand. So, navigating that has been hard. I think even me in that TikTok space, understanding what they're saying with no capitalization or punctuation. So I think for middle schoolers and high schoolers, you've got some really good options out there that weren't around when all of us were younger. So you're very lucky to have these things, but I don't want to use the word beware, but you need to know that you're going to get a tweet or a DM from somebody trying to sell you knives that is saying, I can get you 1,000 followers on whatever platform if you just do this. That's going to happen a lot. And it's happened to me as a 30 some odd year old when that happened a couple years ago. And you've got to be aware that, oh my gosh, I'm being sponsored. It's not that. It's somebody who's found a way to connect with you, and who knows what their end goal is. So resources, GamerDoc, okay, one, Coach Alney, TikTok, YouTube. Then you need to follow a group called COPE, COPE, Coalition of Parents of Esports. Aren't they awesome?
I was gonna say COPE.
Yes, Shay and them and Chris, Chris's kid is septic, right? He was like a younger ninja type kid. They had to take him out of school because all of his friends were like, "Hey, add me, bro. Let's play, and let's, I want to go to the Fortnite World Cup with you or something." A lot of us are working with them. There's quite a few of us working with them, trying to create content to help the parents. So get your parents involved as much as they don't understand what you're doing right now. Get your parents involved because maybe they want to. just as much as they wanted to come to your soccer matches when you were 3, or maybe you have football in high school or band or whatever it is, help them be more open to let them be a part of it, and maybe give them some educational resources. We have some video content about what is esports, and it's really designed for anybody from the range of I know gaming and esports to I don't know how to use a flip phone. So watch our video content on our website. So use those resources. And then lastly, if you want to compete and you move to the college space, a lot of college recruiters recruit from the High School Esports League Discord. If you're in that High School Esports League, that's where a lot of colleges have been recruiting. Now there's groups like LFG Group, NACE, other groups that are going to help you expand your horizons beyond just the high school space and earning scholarships to use at any college. And maybe you don't have to play esports in college, but you can get a degree with maybe some winnings you earn through high school.
Esports is incredible, right? If you want to be a competitor, that's fantastic. But you can use that experience you have in high school and use that experience you have in college, and you can make a career in this field outside of being a competitor. If you're in middle school right now, by the time you graduate college, this space is going to be huge. It's huge now, but it's going to be even bigger. There's going to be incredible amounts of career opportunities. If you want to be involved in esports truly, and if you love it, then do it. And if your parents don't understand, the worst thing you can do is like double down and keep doing what you're doing. I know it's hard to talk to parents. It's so hard to talk to parents, but point them in direction of groups like COPE, point them in the direction of me and Bubba. But you need your parents to be involved. There's not a lot of high performers out there who didn't have really good support. It's just like high level figure skaters, high level snowboarders, skiers. Parental involvement is very important. And a lot of times parents don't understand things and get angry about things just because they don't know. And what you don't know sometimes scares you, especially when you're in charge of another human. So if they're giving you a little bit of pushback, it probably comes from a place of love. So give them just a little bit of grace and they'll probably figure it out. And also use social media appropriately. Unfortunately, this generation has a lot more pressures on it that we didn't have. If social media had been around when I was a kid, I wouldn't be able to get a job. Unfortunately, there's just a different standard. So be careful what you put out on the internet. If you lead with kindness, you're good. Just lead with kindness. But hate speech is never going to be tolerated. So just be careful what you put on the internet.
Doc, so many of us in esports are not professional gamers. Like that's to your point. And what I talked about earlier about production people, you can take NBA out of the middle of this cosm of jobs and put esports in, and they need production. They need shoutcasters, commentators, IT. Middle school, high school space, there's 10 kids on a team. 6 of them are players. 2 of them are the audio video people. One of them's a streamer. One of them's an IT kid. College space, there's colleges that are giving scholarships to students to be their social media campaign person, or they're running the light board and getting a scholarship for it. This is happening. So you don't have to always think you are going to be the next big player or influencer. You can be in esports. I have interns that are doing great things with organizations now that have left and moved on to go work for organizations that are running events like DreamHack and other stuff, but you're not designed to be in front of the camera, and that's okay. And maybe you're not have the best ranking in Overwatch or whatever it is. That's okay. You can still be involved in esports.
Yeah.
Follow that passion, as Doc said earlier.
And get a good education at places like Full Sail to get those other type of career opportunities out there than just gaming.
all kinds of support and love for esports at Full Sail, that's for sure. So as we close it out, I would love to hear just any last words of advice that you would like to share with our audience. Doc, you want to start us off?
Sure. First of all, thank you so much for having me. Thank you for highlighting this important issue. Bubba, as always, just nothing but love for you and everything you do. I think those of you who go to my YouTube will be a little bit disappointed now. I don't create a lot of content there anymore, but make sure to hit me up on Twitter if you need anything. I do post occasional content there, but if you want to learn more, go to my website, GamerDoc.net. Esports has incredible potential. There's a space for everyone, no matter what your skills are, no matter what your interests are. If you want this to be your career, there's time, and you just gotta, follow a few simple rules, and the rest of your life you'll be able to do exactly what you love. So think about your health, think about your career, and think about the health of those around you, and you're good. And always just lead with kindness.
Awesome. Bubba?
I say go to the GamerDoc on Twitter and go to fullsail.edu and go to floridacitrusports.com. I say go to those places because they know what they're talking about. And this is what we do. We want to send you to those people. You can find more links about these organizations at our website at varsityesportsfoundation.org. If you are a parent or a coach or a student and you need resources, we've got tons of them. And you don't know what to do, you want to be a champion for your school. And if you're a college that is dipping the toe in the water and your administration is a bunch of people who look like me who don't know how to use their flip phone, give them our videos and let them learn why it's beneficial in schools, what it does for GPA, what it does for attendance, what it does for social aspect and community. These are all the things we've been talking about today. So in about 10 minutes, rewatch this video and take notes, and then we'll see you on the next one because there's going to be good stuff in your next panel.
Absolutely. Thank you again, Doc and Bubba. I appreciate your time and all of your wonderful insights. So we appreciate you joining us today. Thank you, everyone else, for joining us.
A big thank you to our panelists for sharing their insights into such an important topic.